Okay, bye week is over, and I'm really pissed. Here's my rant. You might be asking, wait, why are you pissed during a bye week? Watched some Big Ten action this past weekend, and I've talked about this. We've talked about this an awful lot. Rutgers' inability to be able to play well and beat conference peers, conference foes. And I'm not talking about Ohio State or Penn State or Michigan. I'm talking about middling, average Big Ten foes. We've talked about how, okay, we beat bad Indiana and Michigan State teams who no longer have their coaches. The scores this weekend in Big Ten play really aggravated me. Let's start off with Minnesota and Illinois because we play both of them. Minnesota wins 25-17, 8-point win. PJ Fleck has Minnesota on a roll. Both those teams are now 6-3. Illinois no longer will be a ranked team. Brett Bielema's got them playing fairly well. You know, they lost a couple, when Luke Altmaier wasn't lighting things up, kind of took a step back. He came back yesterday, had a decent game. We'll get to that in a minute. Minnesota is coming into SHI Stadium, coming into Piscataway this weekend. I'm going to tell you right now, it's a problem for us. Could I see us absolutely getting run off the field? Yes. PJ Fleck and Minnesota has the potential to run us off the field. Are they an explosive offense? No. Are they this daunting defense? No. They're starting to play like a team that some prognosticators preseason had them playing very well. They're starting to pick up momentum now, and they've won 4 in a row. Rutgers, could we ever imagine a scenario where we win 4 games in a row that isn't against Howard or Wagner or Akron? I think you know the answer to that. Minnesota beats Illinois. Rosmer had a workman-like game from the quarterback position. 22 of 37, 213 yards and a touchdown. Luke Altmaier bounced back a little bit, 20 of 33, 226 yards and a touchdown. 126 yards rushing for Illinois. Minnesota had 148 yards. I've talked about Minnesota. They want to be balanced. They want to be able to throw it a little bit, and they did with Rosmer. They rushed it for 148 yards. This is a game that's gives us a snapshot of how we stack up against these teams because it was an evenly matched game. Third down conversions, Minnesota 7 of 15, Illinois 7 of 13. First downs, Minnesota 21, Illinois 20. Total yards, 361 for Minnesota, 352 for Illinois. Plays, 69 for Minnesota, 62 for Illinois. What's the point of all this? If we get embarrassed by either one of these teams who are average, mediocre, middle of the pack, Big Ten teams, and we get run off the field, that's a bad look. A win over either one of these teams would give us, here's how bad we've been in the Big Ten, 9 and 31, whatever we are. A win against either one of these teams would be our best win. They're both 6-3 now. Could we see us losing both these games? Well, absolutely, positively can. As I've talked about, ad nauseum, One of the media talking heads, I've talked about this, Pat Lonnie actually got it right. We never separate ourselves from our peers. We don't get that win. Even by dumb luck, we don't beat a team like Minnesota or Illinois by 10 points, a couple touchdowns, double digits. We just don't. Yet these teams always find a way to win. So we move on to Indiana versus Michigan State. No, it's low-hanging fruit. Yes, we can point to Indiana, and we should. They got a Signetti in there with 13 James Madison transfers. And they're a top 10 team in 1 year. 1 year. They beat Michigan State 47-10, and this kind of shocked me. Michigan State kind of plays like we want to. They want to be physical, play defense. They're going to hang around, play ugly. But like Rutgers, they just give it up in the end because they don't have enough firepower and enough energy and plays left on defense to be able to stop the opposing offense. Now, to Michigan State's credit, they didn't give up. You know, Indiana's averaging over 500 yards per game, over 300 yards passing, over 200 yards rushing, proving you can run off the pass and do both well. Rourke 19 of 29, 263, 4 touchdowns. Michigan State has a good defense. They did a decent job against the rush. 32 rushes, 122 yards. That's 3.8 for an Indiana team that's averaging over 200 yards rushing per game. Michigan State can be physical, and as I talked about against Michigan, where they were dominating the first half, and Michigan State, whether it's against Michigan, whether it's against Indiana, whether it's against Boston College, they get it, or us for that matter. Remember that game in the rain and the slop in Piscataway where they were dominating us, and we made some plays, blocked the punt, special teams, pulled out a game in the end. They played well in the first half. We don't want to fall behind against Michigan State in the first half. They played well in the first half, and we don't have the kind of offense, unlike these other teams like Indiana, even Michigan, to come back and make plays and take the lead after being behind. Indiana, it's one thing to run that Big 12, Pac-12 kind of offense. A whole other thing to be dominating on defense. They had 7 sacks. 7. Michigan State had 241 total yards. Aiden Childs, we talked about him. He's not having the year that Jonathan Smith and Michigan State thought he might have been able to have. Last week he had a kind of a decent game. He was 16 of 24, 193 yards, touchdown, 2 interceptions. Much like Garbers from UCLA, he can turn the ball over. But that means Rutgers defense, you're going to have to get pressure and force some turnovers, and we've done neither of those. And this was a game where Indiana was 2 for 10 on third down. Could you imagine if we ever went 2 for 10 on third down, we'd get blown out. Michigan State was 5 for 15. So there's opportunities for us there on offense and defense to have success against Michigan State if we can execute. Indiana, who was averaging over 500 yards a game, only had 385. So that tells you that Michigan State's defense is pretty good. They just couldn't make enough plays. We're going to have to make plays against Michigan State or they're going to beat us. Indiana was 7 for 7 in the red zone. 7 for 7. We better hope that when we play Michigan State at Michigan State in Lansing, that we can finish some drives. Here's another game that pissed me off. Iowa, who would be right at home playing the wing T back in the 1940s, beats Wisconsin 42-10. That's their second win this year, where they won by like 30 points and scored 40 points. They beat Washington by almost the same score. What was it, 42-17? When Iowa puts up 40 points and Cade McNamara is not even playing, whoever Sullivan is passes for 7 for 10 for 93 yards, and they win by 32 points. That's the team we wish we were, that Coach Shiano thinks we have, but we don't. They rushed for 329 yards, which is what they want to do. Johnson, absolute stud. 3 more touchdowns, 19 touchdowns. I don't care about Boise State. When you have 19 touchdowns and over 1,300 yards so far in the Big Ten, you're a stud. Wisconsin scores 10 points against Iowa. What they have? 551 yards against us. 551. Iowa's like, yeah, get out of here. We never have those kind of games against our peers, even against a offensively challenged, passing challenged team like Iowa, who's now 6-3. UCLA. Now a lot of people are going to say, see, we lost to UCLA. They're not that bad. They beat Nebraska. They beat Nebraska 27-20. We scored 7 points against the Nebraska team. You know, Garbers had an okay game. Dylan Wright, Nebraska's problems are if their offense can't execute. And it looks like Dylan, and I've watched a bunch of them, Dylan Raiola hasn't progressed. Nebraska offense, as a result, hasn't progressed to get to the point where they need to be in order to be that team that everybody thought would be good this year. He got knocked out in the fourth quarter. He had knocked out of the game. We'll see what's up with that. But he has the athleticism, the passing ability. But Nebraska hasn't been able to put together, much like Rutgers on offense, just hasn't been able to put it all together to be consistent. An okay offensive line, kind of a spotty running game. Sometimes they're okay with the 2 running back system. Sometimes they're not. You want to leave it all up to your 5-star Miami transfer quarterback, and the parts just aren't all working together well. Nonetheless, UCLA puts up 27 points on Nebraska. UCLA with one of the worst running games in all of college football. And we put up 7 points. Another game that pissed me off. Washington, who we beats USC 26-21. Everybody beats USC except us. What are they, 4-5 now? And they ran us off the field. They had 452 yards, which is kind of what they do. But Washington did enough on defense to keep them out of the red zone and did just enough on offense to win. Could we ever see ourselves beating USC or Nebraska or UCLA in comfortable fashion? We have Minnesota, Illinois, Michigan State, and Maryland. These are not daunting teams. It should be part of the narrative that, hey, we can, go on a run, rest up a little bit, maybe get a little bit healed up. Yes, there's going to be guys that aren't going to come back despite the bye week and guys that are nicked up. Can I ever see us going 4-0 down the stretch in Big Ten against mediocre competition? That's where we are. That's how sad this all is. No one in their right mind believes that we can do that. That's why they're all jumping on the basketball bandwagon, which, by the way, they're probably setting themselves up for disappointment there. I'm being the rogue tonight. I'm being the Rutgers rogue, the Scarlet rogue. What I'd like to see is us beat our peers who aren't at the top. They're not at the top of the food chain. Can we go beat Illinois. Go beat Minnesota by 8, 10, 12 points. These teams aren't daunting teams. Even with the injuries that we've had, rotating guys in and out, just by dumb luck or, maybe some execution and putting guys in the right position to succeed, we should be able to beat these teams. Now we got to pray for 2-2 just to have an average year and maybe go 7-6 yet again, which is not going to be the case next year when we have to play Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, and Iowa. Iowa, who doesn't have an elite offense, is probably going to run us off the field again. We got 2 games against Ohio, Miami, Ohio. Okay, there's our 2 wins. And then 6 toss-up games. So if we think, we're going to, next year we'll be okay. We have these highly rated recruits. It's going to be a year further down the road in the system. Our young guys will evolve. You have at least 4 losses, and there's probably going to be a couple more in there against teams that we probably should beat that we don't. So what are we looking at? When Coach Shiano says we're going to get there, what is there? We're going to be 6-6 again next year, maybe 7-6? I don't see it. It doesn't matter how well we do with recruiting, how much good publicity we get. We just can't execute on the field. Now, my birthday is in a couple weeks. And as I've mentioned, we always lose around my birthday. And down the stretch every year we fade. And it's never a good birthday. Prove me wrong. Go out there and, get 3 wins. It's not a lot to ask. Win 3 out of 4 against mediocre competition. So now you're 7-5. It's the 2005 Rutgers team. You get a bowl win, you're 8-5, some bowl nobody cares about in the middle of December. But at least on paper, it's progress, and you'll be able to build on that. And if next year we can get a big win, we can do well in those coin flip games, those toss-up games, those swing states, as it were, you can actually see the progress, but we just never seem to get there. Our pattern is set year in and year out. And watching games like we did this weekend where other teams that ran us off the field get beat by other average Big Ten teams, it just pisses me off. There's nothing I wish more than for this team, this coaching staff, to go out there and prove me wrong and put in some good work and get some good wins. Not sure if that's going to happen. Nonetheless, everybody enjoy your week. No election references at this time. Nonetheless, enjoy the week, everybody. SHI Stadium, I'm not even sure I'm going to be there. Do I want to leave early in the 3rd quarter again because Minnesota and BJ Fleck are running us out of the building? I don't know. Nonetheless, enjoy your week. Enjoy this game against Minnesota. And we will see you the next